Hawkins.
Mr Speaker, I must say from the outset I was a little disappointed that this bill didn't deal with some things. The Honourable Rodney Hyde promised people that they'd have lower rates. Now, he's been here quite a while and he hasn't delivered. And I think that really disturbs people because people were looking forward to change. And of course, you've got people like Owen Pringle and Peter Goldsmith in the Papakura Council putting rates up 11% or more this year, where someone in the next council, Daniel Newman, Manukau, tells me it's around 3.8%. So people were looking for some consistency, didn't get it in this bill. And I think that's really important. It's very easy when you're in opposition to go around the countryside and say we'll make it cheaper. But perhaps this bill deals with one thing that worries very many people, and that is the water-owned facilities being leased out for up to 35 years. Now, when I was a mayor, I actually contracted out a lot of things, and we kept the rates down. But 35 years is too far into the future. All those people in grey power will be 100 before they get a vote again on the water, if a council adopts the plans that are in here. 35 years is a long time. And of course, you also have young people who are 30 who will be pensioners before they get another say. 11 or 12 elections can go past before people get another say on this bill. Now, that's what's wrong with this bill, and it builds on what's been happening around the country. EastCans got skittled. Perhaps they may have deserved to be skittled, but for 3.5 years? I think up to the next election, if it's a problem so easy to be sorted out. Then we had the Royal Commission come up with its master plan for Auckland. Did that go to the public of Auckland for a referendum like everyone thought it was going to? No, it didn't. And what has happened here again, people are going to find out that their water treatment, the facilities there, could be set aside from the public scrutiny that it should have for 35 years. Now, some people say it's privatisation. I say it's the closest thing you get to privatisation without selling things. I thought Rodney Hyde may have been better spending his time working out who owns water rather than trying to flog off something. And you've got to make sure that in Auckland, as in the rest of New Zealand, you've got to take the people with you. You don't get in the ACT national bulldozer and trample over the rights of ordinary New Zealanders, and that's what happened. Now, I'm a reasonably fair person. I go on to say, look, there are some things that are good. I think when you have a clause that calls for a pre-election report prepared by the Chief Executive to say how the finances of a council are without lobbying for certain councillors, I think that's fair. It's well overdue, and I say good. But when you may find something good in a bill, you have a look at the overall picture. Now, this bill cannot be seen in isolation. We have 3 bills in Auckland, 2 of them already passed, one entirely under urgency. It didn't have a committee. And of course, there were lots and lots of amendments put forward by the opposition to highlight how democracy was being ridden over. Now, this bill has elements of that in it. It also builds on what's happening in Auckland, where 75 to 80% of the council business will be put in CCOs, and the Minister in his speech talked about a company owned by Ekans that went bust. Now, when you have CCOs and they're not open to public scrutiny, as the council is, then you have a very dangerous position. And that's what worries many people in the opposition. It worries many people in grey power. It worries people who are sole income earners on a fixed allowance. And of course, these people would like to know where their money goes. And I've got to say, yes, I do agree, it's great to have this report done before an election. I imagine the report will only be as good as the chief executive, and some of them, in most cases, are extremely competent people who will do the job well, but there'll be one or two who probably not. Now, I've got to say that when you have a look at the bill and you see that we're going to have all sorts of core business, that's what it's all going to be about. And, you know, last year, Rodney Hyde went around talking about core business. He talked about it so much that his mother reminded him that libraries are a core business. He hadn't thought of that. And this is one of the problems. I think there needs to be a balance from where Labor went, where councils were able to move into areas that they saw need, and what is happening here. Core business. Having water supplied to your house. Having your rubbish picked up at the gate. Having your roads repaired. People see those things as core business. And I think that this bill is a wee bit too narrow in that respect. I also think that it is very difficult to write these things into law. And I think when things are written into law, then you've got to take the public with you. And I don't think that's happening here. You see, when you have councils that are so different from the top of the North Island down Stewart Island, out in Chatham's, there are things that are very, very different. Now, a local authority must have particular regard to network infrastructure, public transport services, solid waste collection and disposal, avoidance or mitigation of natural hazards. None of these things would we argue about. But is that having libraries, museums, reserves, recreation facilities and other community infrastructure the whole total? I suggest it's not, and I imagine many people will make submissions because there's no real talk about the social needs of communities in here. And there has got to be far more awareness of the social needs of ordinary families living in ordinary communities. Though those communities may be vastly different in different parts of the country, they've got to have the ability to move into those areas themselves, rather than being dictated by the National Act Coalition. And I've got to say, their record in local government is abysmal. You know, I thought we were going to go somewhere, but we haven't been taken to the promised land. We've been taken to the execution chamber. And that's what has happened. This government has forgotten that ordinary New Zealanders value their democracy, and democracy is slowly but surely being snuffed out by John Key and Rodney Hyde.
Call the Honourable John Carter.